Hey, what's up, VC? It's Steve again, Harmless Rebel, and it's time for another hard rock and heavy metal update. Let's just kind of jump into it. I got a bunch of stuff to show. It's been so long since I've done a video. I've just got stuff backed up everywhere, so I want to get through, try to get caught up on this stuff. So we'll start out with just an absolute classic album. This album's absolutely amazing. I was really stoked when I found out that it was going to be repressed for Record Store Day a couple years ago, and then I couldn't find a copy. And recently they've been popping up everywhere for really cheap, so I highly recommend picking this one up, because all of their other albums were released on vinyl, but they were all limited pressings. They all go for $100, $150, with the exception of their last album. But this is the Politics of Ecstasy by Nevermore. Again, this is a Record Store Day release. When was this? 2016 is when this was repressed. And they did a really killer job with this. I just actually listened to this again before doing this video. This is also, so the album one is Politics of Ecstasy, which is a phenomenal album from beginning to end. And then album two is the In Memory EP, which came out the same year. I can't remember if it came out before or after this album, but it came out the same year as this album. And then it's also got five demos. And it looks like they're all from Politics of Ecstasy. This album sounds absolutely phenomenal. It's a great album. This is the second album from Nevermore. If you're a fan of Sanctuary, you're going to love Nevermore. It's on this really nice clear orange vinyl. Again, it just sounds beautiful. And I highly recommend picking it up. I ended up picking this. It's actually funny. I picked this up one morning. I think I paid like 15 bucks for it at one of my local stores. It was in the clearance bin, and I couldn't grab it fast enough. And then literally that same day, maybe 4 or 5 hours later, I got a call from Scott asking if I needed this album, because he found it for a really good price too, right around the same. I think he paid like $17 for it. And it was just funny that I had literally just bought a copy a couple hours earlier that day. I would love to see Century Media repress the rest of their stuff, though I don't know why they haven't. Up next, a couple of these I've shown before when I first got them. Next up, we've got Storybook Heroes from Highway Child. Just a really great album from '83, hard rock. Really dug this one. I've heard their other albums aren't as good as this one. And then next up, Melodic Hard Rockers, TNT. I already had this on CD. I think I have a Japanese pressing of this on CD. So I was really stoked to find the album version. And this is actually the one you see the most. Unfortunately, it's also the one that's usually pretty trashed. But this is Tell No Tales. And just a solid album. Love these guys. Next up, this is a cool find. This is a band I had never heard of. I looked it up, and this was kind of a band that they were kind of being billed as the next Kiss. I'm trying to remember where they were from, but somebody introduced this band, their music, to Gene Simmons, and he really dug it. They were having trouble getting signed, and he got them signed on Casablanca. And this is just an absolutely phenomenal album. It just kind of fell through the cracks. And I mean, there were so many good bands coming out around that same time. They're not a Kiss sound alike, but it's just really good 70s hard rock. And this is one that I highly recommend picking up, because I really, really dug this one. This is Trigger. And again, I just based on the album cover, I decided to look up what it was and found that little story about it, and I really dug it. Next up, not really hard rock, but found a really nice copy of this. I've been looking for a really clean copy for a long time. This is the Foghat debut. Always love that artwork as well. Sorry, trying to get rid of the glare. Next up, this has been on my want list forever. I've been looking for a copy of this, and I have never even seen it. Not in good condition, not in bad condition. The album on this is pretty much mint. Looks like some moisture got to it. You can kind of see that the album cover is kind of wavy, but it's still in really good condition. This is Mahogany Rush's debut, Max Zoom, and I can't remember how old Frank Marino was on this album when he recorded this, but I want to say he was 16 or 17 when he recorded this. And you know, he's always talked about the Jimi Hendrix influence. That's always been talked about. You can hear it in probably his first 4 albums the most, but you can definitely hear it in this one, and not just in the playing, but also in the way he vocalizes some of the tracks. And there's actually a song on here that's a direct dedication to Jimi Hendrix. And it actually, on the back here, says dedicated to Jimi Hendrix as well. But just a killer album. Really happy to finally have that one. And it's not that they're expensive. I mean, you see them pop up on the internet for $6, $7, $8. They're just always trashed. And it's got that kind of matte style jacket. And you can see a little bit of ring wear there. But this is literally the nicest copy I've seen, so I was really stoked. And I paid like $6 for it. Maybe it was $4. Next up, this is a killer album. I finally got around to listening to it. Sorry about that, Farley. This is one that Farley sent me quite a while ago. Excuse me, and I absolutely loved it. I'm gonna have to go out and get the rest of their stuff now. Ranger. What is it called? Where Evil Dwells. Just a really killer new wave of traditional metal band. The vocalist kind of sounds like Dave Mustaine to me. However, he hits some real high notes that Dave Mustaine can't hit. But that's kind of the vibe that I was getting from his vocals. Kind of mix of Dave Mustaine with maybe Sanctuary, where they go, the Sanctuary debut, Control Denied. Where, what's his name? I can't think of his name. Whirl was going for those higher notes. Really good album, though. Another one that I recommend grabbing. Next up, this album is absolutely phenomenal. Just straight up heavy metal. I believe this was 88. No, it was 92. Is that right? Yeah, it looks like it came out in 92. Great album. This was released last year, I think, by Rox Records. I'm just now showing up. I've spun this thing like 10 times. I absolutely love this album. I think was this released on CD too? I can't remember. If it was, though, I got the CD too. Well, this is one Scott and I were going back and forth on when he was doing the artwork for this one, because he had to take a really grainy CD cover and blow it up into a 12-inch. And when you see the before and after, it's a huge difference. He did a great job on this. But this is Holy Soldier, Last Train, their second album. Their first 2 albums are absolute classics. I hope somebody releases their debut soon, because I love that album. This one is great too. And a little cool little side thing that they did. And I think I got the colored vinyl on this one. So Scott and I were talking. We both kind of dug the Japanese cover was different, and I personally thought the Japanese cover was nicer. And I can't remember if Scott did, but Bill was really liked the original cover here. And Scott changed it up, the font for Last Train, and then the Japanese caricatures underneath the Holy Soldier was added. But one thing I did like that they did is they took the Japanese album art and they made that the center label on the inside. It's on this really cool red and black vinyl that I really dig, and of course the Rox logo on that side. Just a really killer album, though. I'm not sure if these are still available on Rox Records, but if they are, I highly recommend picking this one up. Just really killer metal from the from '92. And this was their last really good album. After this, they tried, and their third album wasn't bad, but they tried to change their sound more in the vein of Alice in Chains, and it just, you know, they're a heavy metal band. Next up, this is a really cool album. I was really happy to find this. This is a promo copy. I'm trying to get all of the early stuff from April Wine. I like the stuff from the 80s. It's more popular here in the U.S., but their earlier stuff is absolutely phenomenal. And this is just one of the story behind this album is one of the coolest stories. This is live at El Macambo, which was a club in Toronto. I think this was a live show. And it was a live show. Who was the opening band? Give me a second. I think it was the Cockroaches. I can't see it on here. I thought it said it on here, but I think the band that opened for them was the Cockroaches. And what this really was, it was basically a private concert in a small venue. It was going to be a live recording for the Rolling Stones. But they didn't want anybody to know that the Rolling Stones would be playing at the El Macambo. So what they did was they did a radio broadcast, or a radio contest, where they selected 300 people for each night, because that's all that would fit in the venue. That's how small this club was. And it was supposed to be, they had to write an essay about why the Rolling Stones were their favorite band. And if they won, they would win tickets to go see April Wine, who was pretty big in Canada. So all these people, it was billed on the bill as April Wine with a band called the Cockroaches opening for them. Well, the Cockroaches were obviously the Rolling Stones. And I believe, I don't know if there is a full recording of one of those shows, but tracks from all three of those shows have ended up on various live albums throughout their career. So the stuff is out there, the Rolling Stones from that show. But April Wine sounded absolutely phenomenal as well. But basically, they got the media to go along with this. So none of the radio stations, none of the media outlets leaked out that it was the Rolling Stones. And the people that went to the shows the first and second night kept it quiet. So it's a really cool story. It's something that wouldn't happen today with social media. It would be impossible to do something like that. But still, really kind of a historic concert, and just a really killer live set from April Wine. Next up, Quiet Riot, Live Riot 83. This is a pretty cool concert. It's kind of a mix. It says 83. A few tracks are from 83 and a few tracks are from 84. Let me see what the insert says. But here's the... It's not the best sound quality. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give the sound quality about a 6. But it doesn't take away from the coolness of what this show is. So a couple of the tracks were recorded on the Mental Health Tour in 83. And a couple of the tracks, or the rest of them, were on the Condition Critical Tour in 84. But it also comes with this insert that kind of tells the story. Nice shot of Quiet Riot. And on the back, tracks from Quiet Riot, Mental Health Tour, have all the intensity of the band on the brink of their international success, Danger Zone, which was recorded for the Mental Health album but never completed. Had been included in the... anyway, that song, Danger Zone, they only did for the first part of the tour, and they've never recorded it live since. It's never been part of their set. Let's see. Gonna Have a Riot was Quiet Riot's favorite, that was originally performed by the band with the late Randy Rhoads, which is on there. Randy Rhoads isn't, but that track is. Let's see, and again, that's one that was only on their 83 tour. They've never recorded that live or played that live. And then the track selection from 84 Critical Tour. Condition Critical Tour was recorded during the height of the band's popularity and the peak of their live performances. Really good, though. It's a really good set. You got a couple of tracks that you can't really get live anywhere else, which is kind of cool. Definitely worth having. I paid like $12 for this. I saw online you can get this for like $10. It really is Quiet Riot at their best. They sound absolutely phenomenal on here. Again, not the best sound quality, but it didn't take away from the enjoyment of it for me. So For those of you that are into collecting the soundboard and the radio station albums, this is one I recommend picking up. Next up, Nasty Savage, Abstract Reality, Thrasher's Nasty Savage. These guys are just so good. This is a great EP, 4 tracks. Another one I was just really stoked. I want to find all their albums. I've got like 2 on CD and that's it. But you've got Abstract Reality, Unchained Angel, Aromantic Vertigo, and You Snooze, You Lose. Just all 4 great tracks, and it's just a really cool EP. Next up, again, this is more blues rock. Tommy Bolin, Energy. I don't remember what the deal was with this. I don't remember if Energy was the name of his first band, and that's what this is. These recordings were released back in the 90s with a different album cover, but same name. I've heard a lot of people say that the songs aren't great. I think they're cool as hell. His guitar playing is fucking amazing on this album, but it is on all of his albums. And I've listened to this a bunch of times, and I really dig it. I see what they're saying. A couple of the songs, the vocals or the lyrics aren't the best, but I don't care. This was done by Friday Music. They did a great job. It's on this clear red vinyl. It's the only time it's been pressed. It's been released on CD. I think there was 2 pressings on CD, and then this. So this and the CD pressings go for like $30-40 from what I saw. I really dug this. So if you're a fan of Tommy Bolin, you're gonna dig that. Next up, and that was a record store day release from last record store day too. So was this one. This one I thought sucked. I'm probably gonna trade or sell this, but this is Dimebag Darrell, The Hits, and nothing on here really does anything for me. If you're a Dimebag Darrell fan, it's something you'll probably want to have. I like Pantera. I loved a couple of their albums. At the time, I loved them. When they came out, I couldn't get enough. Well, when they came out, as far as Cowboys from Hell. Cowboys from Hell, I mean, those 4 albums that they did through Reinventing the Steel, I thought were just 4 of the best albums that came out during that period. I still like them all. I don't find myself visiting them that often, though. And when I do, I just don't get that feeling that I used to get from them. There's still songs that I absolutely love. And they were really important for the time. It just hasn't held up for me that well, unfortunately. Next up, I was really stoked to run across this 72 pressing of School's Out from Alice Cooper. I've been looking for a really nice copy of this for a long time, and I never find it. This one is really nice across the board. Look, a few more scratches than I like, but it's got the panties in there. They're starting to split a little bit on the side, so they did come wrapped around the album initially. But I mainly bought this for the album cover and because it's complete. But this album, other than the song School's Out, doesn't get much love, but this is a solid album. I love this album. I actually like this more than Billion Dollar or Million Dollar Babies. Billion Dollar Babies. I like the song Billion Dollar Babies, but I think this album is a better album. Again, I just don't think it gets enough love. Next up, this is another one I've talked about before. I showed this briefly when I bought it in Baltimore. This is the debut EP from Impelliteri. Just killer 80s metal with, again, one of my favorite vocalists. You got Rob Rock on vocals. Unfortunately, after this EP, he left the band for a while. He did come back later and put out some amazing albums with Chris Impelliteri. Chris Impelliteri is an absolute virtuoso. He's not too over the top, though. He doesn't go the Steve Vai route where it's just too much. But he's just as good as Steve Vai, Satriani, that whole gang of guys there. But killer EP. All 4 tracks on there are great.